In this video, we're going to show you everything you need to know about using an auxiliary output on an audio mixer. We're going to talk about what an auxiliary output does, when you would use it, when you wouldn't use it. We're going to talk about the two main different types of auxiliary outputs. There is a third different type that we're going to mention very briefly in this video as well. We're going to go through the controls, how you'd actually use it, how you'd set it up, and we're going to talk about the auxiliary outputs on your audio mixer as well. Okay, so what does an auxiliary output do? An auxiliary output is a way of setting a custom mix that's independent of the main stereo mix on your audio mixer. This is really helpful for a bunch of different reasons. When would I recommend using an auxiliary output or an auxiliary mix? I would use it if I'm doing monitors. So your monitors on stage will have a different mix than what's out front of stage, whether you're using floor monitors or in-ear monitors. If you're trying to feed an effects engine, you might not want your whole mix going to your effects engine. It makes sense to have vocalists or maybe a snare drum or something like that going to a reverb unit, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for some other channels to be getting that reverb unit. So it allows you to set a custom mix that goes to your effects unit. Also, if you're doing any type of live streaming or hybrid event, it allows you to set a different mix for that live stream. Sometimes you don't have music rights. Sometimes on a live stream, music comes across much louder in a live stream than it does in a room, so you want it just turned down relative to everything else. These are the types of things that an auxiliary output can do for you. Okay, so where do you find an auxiliary output on an audio mixer? This is a little bit different whether you're in analog world or digital world. On an analog mixer, they're usually right below the EQ, and there will be a bank of 1 to 6 knobs that are labeled aux. You can see here that there's aux 1 and aux 2 on this audio mixer. And if you had a larger audio mixer, it would go all the way down 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes even more than that. On a digital audio mixer, it's a little bit different. You'll usually have a button up on the side. You'll click a button for an aux output, and then your faders will jump because they have flying faders, they have motors in them. And then you can set your mix for your auxiliary output using the faders instead of rotary knobs. It's a lot faster to do it that way. It can be a lot easier, and it allows you to save your mix between songs if you have different mixes for different auxiliary outputs as you go. But on an analog audio mixer, it's a lot more straightforward. You just see here I have a blue row and a white row here, and I'm going to talk about the differences between both of those rows. Now, there are two different main types of auxiliary outputs, and then I'm going to mention a third type at the end as well. The most popular type of auxiliary output by far is known as a post-fader auxiliary output. That's a lot of words there, but you can break it down and you can figure out what it means. It's a post-fader auxiliary output. This means that by default, it considers the input of your faders of your main stereo mix when determining what goes out through your auxiliary mix. So what does this look like? You can see here I have all these white knobs turned to this triangle, 0, or unity position. Every audio mixer will be a little bit different. There might be a 0 or a U or a main hash mark there. They all kind of indicate the same thing. And this is that it's set at unity. It's not modifying what's coming into it. And what's coming into it is the mix post fader. So this is really good if you're doing things like live streams. It's a dynamic event. You're always mixing the event. But maybe you have an offset. Maybe for your music track or maybe for your drums, you want your music track maybe minus 50%. It just comes across too loud in your live stream. So if you do this, it will still be affected by your fader in your main stream. If you turn up or down the music, you can fade in and out the music. But just for that one channel, it'll just be a little bit quieter. This is a really handy tool. Now, the second type of auxiliary output that you might have is known as pre-fader. This is a way of setting your main auxiliary mix without considering the output of your main stereo mix. Sometimes you would use this for something like monitors of a background vocalist, or sometimes like bass players and drummers. They don't care about the whole song. They just want the mix that they have. They want to hear 2 or 3 things in their monitors, and they don't really care about the main mix that's out front. Same thing for a background vocalist. They'll want to hear the same thing in the monitor throughout the event. Whether or not that background vocalist is featured in a song or buried in the mix, they still need to hear themselves on their floor monitor, so they want a pre-fader mix. They don't want to risk you turning them down in a song out front, and then suddenly they can't hear themselves, and then they can't tell if they're on pitch or on key or what they're doing in the song. So a pre-fade mix is more commonly used for monitors, but not always. Some musicians prefer to hear the dynamics of the song as well. Now, since an auxiliary output has to do a little bit with routing, you're creating custom mixes, maybe you're sending to an effects engine or something like that. I do want to also just briefly talk about an insert. An insert is a way that you can insert an external piece of equipment into a specific channel. So this would be a way that you can apply an effects engine to a specific vocalist if you want. By connecting to this, it basically takes this microphone channel, it will take it out to an effects engine, then bring it back in through this jack before it comes down for further routing. It's a little bit related to auxiliary outputs just because of the way it can be processed, but not really for the purposes of how most people use an audio mixer. Okay, we touched on it briefly, but let's just quickly go into the controls of actually using auxiliary mix here. So you can see on this first row here with the blue knobs, there's a button down below it that says pre. So as we discussed, this is a way that I can toggle this channel between pre and post fader. By default, as I said, the most popular way to do this is post fader. So that's why on an audio mixer, you'll typically have to click it on to make it pre fader. Now, the cool thing is that you can do this per channel. So you don't have to commit the whole aux to be pre fade or post fade. So like I said, maybe you're a background vocalist and you're wanting a copy of the main mix that's going out. Most of the channels here will be post fade. All the buttons will be in the up position. But maybe just for your channel, you want to make sure that you hear yourself at a loud volume. You're right in front of your monitor. So for that one channel, I would hit pre-fade, and then you would always hear yourself at the same volume, no matter whether or not the main sound engineer turns up your channel up or down in the main stereo mix. Now, as you continue to come all the way down this horizontal channel strip, you will notice that there is a main output as well. After that main output, so if you are too loud or too quiet in your floor monitor, an audio engineer can control that, then it pops out through this aux send at the top. This is a way that you can control things no matter what you're doing. If it's running an aux output, then you would run this to a floor monitor or in-ear monitor system. If you're running this for an effects engine, then you'd run this auxiliary to your effects unit and then bring that back in through a channel so you can hear that reverb or delay or whatever you're adding to the mix there. But these aux outputs are usually near the main output section of your audio mixer. I hope this video has been helpful. If you do have any questions or comments, or if there's a particular thing that I've missed when it comes to aux outputs on an audio mixer, please leave a comment down in the comment section below. Again, if you are looking for pricing or specs for anything you see in this video, please check out the links down in the description below. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.